Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Coolman here, and I got another episode of Drafting to Win. This is a series I've been doing lately. Um, it's about this one is about limited for the Theros block. I did a run. I started off first pick was Uro, and so that kind of guided me towards Simic. Didn't get as much of a good of a run as I wanted to. You'll see the draft. I thought it went really well and ended up 4 wins, 3 losses. One of the wins was a crazy, or one of the losses, I should say, was was a crazy opening for my opponent, and that'll be showcased here. During this episode, I show you the draft, try to quickly edit it and give you guys sort of my thought process, and you could see all the cards, and maybe you would have made different choices. And then I'd go over the games, and I hope you enjoy this type of content. I'll tell you just right off the bat, this episode did not have as much of opportunities to learn as past episodes. So if you're watching this for entertainment, great. If you're watching this to learn, maybe another episode might help you a little bit better. In other episodes, I talk about mindset. I talk about reading your opponent. I talk about how to play an aggressive mid-range deck versus a mid-range deck like this one that's more value-oriented. So this one, there's maybe 2 games, game 2 and game 3, that are worth learning something from, specifically using the card Wings of Hubris, which is kind of an interesting, it's a bad card that you can make work for you and showcase that. But other than that, just that's a heads up for this episode. So stay tuned, drop a comment, let me know what you think of it, and if you enjoy this type of content, like it, subscribe, and await the new one. So, all right, thanks, guys. Let's get into the draft. All right, let's start. See what we can learn. So already, I think I've determined that making this deck, I really wanted to fit in my one red card, Heroa's Blessing. I think that's a mistake. Looking back at it, it's a mistake. During this game, it turns out to not be good. And I just think it's too much of a stretch. And I know it's removal. I know it's a good card, but I think I forced it too much. So I usually just go for 2 colors, and I think it's good to remain in 2 colors. Here, I knew I pulled the Uro early, and that kind of guided me towards Simic, blue and green the entire time. So opponent does see the Agonizing Remorse. He could see the Deny the Divine. Sort of unfortunate. Takes out a card of value and knows what's coming. But I did have a 2-drop with the Nessian Hornbeetle. Unfortunately, doesn't generate any value like it normally does later on in the game. But that's alright. At least we got something down. I can't make a read off of this because I don't know if the opponent is playing suboptimally. Usually you want to throw out just like a ratty, just whatever card and have me sort of forced to deny the divine that and counter it. So what this tells me for my opponent is that they don't have a 3-drop, or maybe they have a good 3-drop and they don't want to play it. It's hard to identify. Obviously you don't know. Okay, opponent did have removal. And I can't counter that removal. And then here, they have a pretty good read that I don't have follow-up plays. They took away my 3-drop. I was kind of happy to see that their 4-drop, I was countering it. So it almost looks like they're playing on curve the best they could. So, like, I would have thrown out, if I were them, I would have thrown out the 2-drop and had me decide from that point whether I'm going to counter that or not. Now, a couple considerations. Maybe they just drew it, but then they also had the Stampede Rider in their hand. So maybe they didn't want me to counter the one that's recurable. So the Underworld Ragehound could come back with Escape. So this is how my opponent's sort of thinking. But you can see from here, just drawing lands off the top and that early play, this game was over. Sort of the reason I'm recording this run, I only went 4 wins, 3 losses. And one of the losses was really interesting. We'll get into that one. That's towards the end. I thought this deck was going to be awesome. I mean, I had really good cards, and after this game, I make the fix. I take the Heroa's Blessing out because it's just not consistent enough. I have 2 mountains, 2 red sources in the deck. This is my only red card, and then I have a Traveler's Amulet. So I thought that's consistent enough. I don't think so. I think just stick with 2 colors. Not a whole lot of fixing in this set. Unless you're green, but even then, it's not that great of a fixing. So yeah, I take it out, and I just have my regular cards. Alright, get into the next game. This is game 2, so I'm 0-1 at this point. I like this opening hand. Relentless Pursuit, I think, is a fine turn 3 play. Now, the Starlit Mantle didn't do well for me this run. I don't think it's a particularly good card. I might have put the second one in, so I'm running 2 of them. It's 1 too many. It might be 2 too many, because the card's not that great. Here, we can click ahead. Okay, I rip my Traveler's Amulet. Finds me a blue source, which is okay at this point. Here I'm thinking on turn 3, obviously the Relentless Pursuit, and find something, and it also ramps us up, fills up our graveyard. I think that card's really good. And our opponent's not presenting like super aggressive opening. They're not doing, like, even having a 2 power creature that does 4 damage, like 2 and then 2, and then maybe they get another turn with it. That's when you want to maybe hold on to Relentless Pursuit and start playing something so that you can block it and not lose the race. But identified here that I have if he's doing 2 damage a turn, it's not that big of a deal. I can afford to find something. So that's why I made that turn 3 play. Found Uro off the top, which is a great card that's going to ramp me up even more. Here, playing the Chimera, I think Uro is the correct play. I think I do end up doing that. I say this every time. This is all pre-recorded. I'm not playing these games actively. Recorded the footage, and I'm looking at it after and determining if I made good plays, bad plays. Hopefully I can help anyone out that finds this interesting, and it also helps me be a better player because I'm trying to figure out why this deck didn't go all the way. 4 wins, not terrible, not bad, but I felt it was a better than 4 wins deck. To be honest with you guys, I've been having a hard time with the Theros block. I've not been getting the wins that I kind of want to get. I want to be doing more 5, 6, 7 win runs, and I record quite a few of these because I want to make good content, but I've been having troubles. I don't know if it's my picks are bad. I use DraftSim, I use DraftSim.com, I use Arena Tutor. Been using Arena Tutor, which is this program right here. If I click this in game, it would show me the deck, show me during the drafting process. It gives you suggestions. Sometimes I'll follow it, sometimes I'll totally ignore it. The times when I've been following Arena Tutor, I don't do well with those runs. So I'm actually less hesitant to sort of advertise for them and give a shout out and give a recommendation because it's not been working out for me. That's just recently. I go through, like I did M19, great suggestions for those runs, and I got a couple really good runs there. And I think I uploaded one of the videos, so one of the past drafting to win videos. You can see that it was an Orza, no, it was a Boros, kind of aggressive mid-range deck. That was a really good run. Here, just opponents playing, it's actually annoying the Moss Vipers because I know if I play my big guys, they won't be able to barrel through. So here, my plan is to just put stuff on the board and sort of, my opponent's not getting more ahead. They're still developing, so I'm going to develop. I know I have, the way I'm already identifying my opponent is that they're playing smaller creatures, probably with lots of recursion, and because there's just that's how black and green tend to play in this set, and I think I can go over the top of them, especially with the Uro that I got early. If I play the long game, I feel I'm gonna have a chance. I prefer big green in this set, and I know that big green can trample through stuff, and I drafted accordingly for that. Okay, so why did I make these blocks? I figured that the Loathsome Chimera is going to die here, and I want to get rid of the Vipers as much as possible. I think I killed the Grim Physician because my Loathsome Chimera is going to die either way. But perhaps there was an argument to be made about killing off the Moss Viper, both of them. Not sure. Either way, opponent gets one of the Moss Vipers back, so I'm not sure it mattered terribly. Alright, got a lot of options here. I can recur the Uro back, but I was thinking I have time, I have 16 life, my opponent's not presenting anything crazy. They also might be holding up removal. With black, there are lots of things that they can remove. So I wanted to develop here. I didn't want to just, throw out the Nyxborn Colossus. I'm also always aware that black has removal of the graveyard, so instead of using stuff from my hand, I could just play out, exile the stuff already. My hesitation for that is the Loathsome Chimera could recur later. So do I choose to play the Uro and exile the Loathsome Chimera, or do I continue to develop the board? I don't know the right choice here, but I feel like I have to get the Uro out of there. I felt like that was a strong play at the time. Because if I just played the Nyxborn Colossus, I wouldn't have had the Nessian Hornbeetle on there. And having the Nessian Hornbeetle on against his board, what he's presenting, is really good to have that thing just keep on ramping up, because he's got to have two options now of pieces to remove. He's got to remove the Uro, which is not terrible because I'll fill that graveyard back up and get it eventually. Just the threats there, or kill off the horn beetle that will keep on growing. Opponent does have a weird source of removal, but it's kind of a 2-for-1. But then I think you also draw a card off of Warbriar Blessing, so opponent traded a card for a card with my Uro, but the Uro's already got me a lot of value. So far I'm okay with this. And as you can see, I have 4 cards in hand. One of my cards draws me 2 cards. That's Thasia's Intervention, the blue card down there. And the opponent doesn't have anything. I guess they could kill off their own creatures, but I feel ahead at this point. So it's just about staying ahead. Don't lose any nonsense, and don't try to get too cute. Don't try to draw too many cards, or just play to my outs, play to my strategy. You know, maybe could have swung there. It would have been a little bit greedy. I like holding back the Nessian Horn Beetle. I don't want it to die yet. It's going to keep on growing. If that's my opponent's best creature that they could have laid down, it still doesn't beat my board. So I felt really good about my position at this point. Okay, what am I thinking about killing off? I'm thinking about killing off the Moss Viper so I can get in there for damage. It's a consideration. Also thought about just board development with the Starlit Mantle that I could have up in case my opponent, I guess, draws removal, but that's a really low possibility. I don't think that's... It might have been correct here to Warbriar's Blessing, kill the Forerunner, and then attack. Yeah, I'm not sure that was optimal. I probably should have played the Warbriar Blessing and had the Nyxborn Colossus, this one, the 6/7, fight the Nylea's Forerunner. Just remove that from the board, maybe. Or I could have had the Nexus Warden kill off the Moss Viper. There was just options there. I'm not sure it matters terribly. I'm in a position where I can afford to play a little slowly because my board beats his board. Okay, I wasn't too scared of that play. I'm not sure the reasoning here. I guess because he has Indestructible, he decided to swing. It didn't do him any good. Now he just has a tapped creature. You know, he had no cards in hand or couldn't do anything like weird with that. Yeah. Realizes it's a mistake. You know, I considered here just playing the Starlit Mantle just to have an extra +1/+1. It's a pretty weak play. I think I'm doing now what I could have done last turn. Now, is it the right choice here? Or should I just have killed off the 5/4? Yeah, I don't know about that play. Because if I was going to do that was a mistake. I could have sequenced this much, much better. You guys already can probably tell. Put the Hydra's Growth on, gain the 2 life from the 1/4 creature that every time an enchantment enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. And then, was killing off the Moss Viper that big a deal? I felt like it was, because everything else will trade. Like, this is going to trade favorably. He has to sacrifice at least the big guy and probably one of the little guys. Or you'd have to double block. And I have also the Star Mantle, which would have put me in a position where I think I would have 2-for-1'd. I've got a lot of things to play with here. I mean, I'm filling up the graveyard. I know Uro's going to come back. I don't see anything from my opponent that's scary. Yeah, that's not gonna do it. I think from here on out, you just maintain board control. If the opponent, I have trample on the Nessian Hornbeetle. If the opponent removes the Nessian Hornbeetle, which is the biggest threat that my opponent's facing right now, then that fills it up for Uro to come back. And then I have card draw in my hand, so we felt real good about this position. Here I would love it if my opponent used his entire board to kill my 13/13. So I have trample. The Nylea's Forerunner gives everything trample. It's just an awful trade. But I'm not sure that my opponent could have done anything better. Now, why did I choose to do that? I think because I was in such a good position that I possibly could have used Thassa's intervention for countering whatever my opponent played. That's the ultimate like safe pick or safe choice, but I didn't need to draw anything more. Oh, it's also instant speed, so I could still, so I could have countered or I could draw. Yeah. So this is just fine here. That's a huge draw. I'm going to find something good. Well, I'll let the rest of this game play out just for like the sake of the video, but I don't think there's anything more to be learned from this game. Kind of just got ahead with stuff on board. And if at any point you guys are like bored, I encourage like scrub through the video. Like I'm trying to talk through the impactful parts. So if you see a point that's interesting, like stop the video there and start watching. And I try to edit these down. I'm like aware that I'm uploading these and sensitive of how consumers, like people, watchers, viewers, like consume this content. And so, like the boring parts, like the in between here, this is sort of wasted footage. But I don't want to edit it too much and not give the authentic experience that what I'm thinking of, how we're playing the game. You know, anybody watching this probably has experience playing Magic Arena, and you just don't mind the downtime. But when we're watching a video like this, the downtime, it's kind of boring, you know? You're here to learn. You're here to learn something from the gameplay, and I'm here to talk about it and hopefully improve my own gameplay. I don't think we've seen it yet, but Wings of Hubris, I'm actually on that card. Like that card I thought was awful for the longest time. In the right decks, it can be real good. I think I get at least a win or two because of Wings of Hubris. It's kind of an interesting card. I'm not sure how to describe to like a general audience like when to play that card, but if you're playing green, like big green, I think it's good there. But here I have an option between just getting ahead. I felt like getting ahead was fine here. Because Relentless Pursuit just loses its effectiveness as the game goes on. It's real impactful at this point. Gets me ahead. But there's also an argument to be made about I don't know what my opponent's presenting. So just getting the Aurelius, what's it called? Illyrios Enraptured down would develop the board. How could we have made a better call there? I think, okay, so we see that my opponent has a 2-drop, but not an aggressive 2-drop, and not a super big one. It's the same one I have. And then is playing red and green. So would board development... I don't think so. I think I would have done exactly what I did and play the Relentless Pursuit. Try to get, like, outvalue my opponent. Because here I'm able to hit all my land drops and make um, make everything kind of playing to my game plan, to my strengths. The reason Illyrios and Enraptured is such a good card is because I can block the board here. Now I can't, but the idea is to block the board, and you still have a 2/3, which is a fine, for 3 mana. So it's like 2 creatures. It's super powerful. Here, I just let that damage go through. I'm not panicking yet because I've got ways to kill it. I could have, even if I didn't have that and I just played the Nyxborn Seaguard, I still would have a way to deal with my opponent's board. But I'm happy to trade 1 card for 1 card, or 1 card for 2 cards on my opponent for the cost of 7 life to my face. Totally fine with me. Opponent had to swing there. That's the requirement of that enchantment. So it's kind of an interesting draw here, getting the Wings of Hubris. I identified here that I didn't want to play the Hydra's Growth because then that would have been the only play. So, but the Hydra's Growth on the 3/2, it's not that great. But I played the Nyxborn Seaguard and Wings of Hubris, planning my next turn so that I can get more and more damage in. My opponent could have stopped that. They could have just blocked it there, because the subsequent turns, I'm going to be swinging over top of them, so they probably should have blocked, is what I'm saying. I decided to put it on the 3/2 because the 2/5 can block in the ground, and the doing 3 damage in the air is slightly better than doing 2 damage. I guess choosing the line of plan that I did, putting it on the 3/2, makes me vulnerable to something like that, Final Flare. Should I have played around that? That's a good question. Possibly. I'm not sure I would have played around Final Flare, but I think I just give it to my opponent. I think they had removal, they had the answer. They can take it. I was happy with this swing because it means that I can get a free kill on the Moss Viper. The Moss Viper ended up doing nothing for him. And then from here on out, I think I just dink my opponent down from 3 damage in the air. Evasion's good. Evasion's really, really good. Nope. Okay, I was fine with that. This is actually a good thing to talk about. The fact that my opponent played 2 Final Flares, I don't think that's a good choice to put Final Flares in your deck. Unless you're doing something like you have recursion, you can reuse the cards you're sacrificing, which my opponent may or may not have. I haven't seen any escape cards yet, but they could be out there. You don't want to use Final Flare. It's not effective. Yeah, you're doing 5 damage. It feels like removal, but it's not. You're killing your own creatures. You want to play something down that you make your opponent have to spend 2 cards to kill it. You don't want to put something down and go, oh, I can just use Final Flare to sacrifice this crappy creature to kill off my opponent. But you've just 2-for-1'd yourself. You've sacrificed your own creature, you've removed your own creature, and you think, oh, I'll just put a bad creature down. That's the wrong way to think about it. Just put a good creature down. Even I didn't have a lot of good creatures. That's why I have to play the 4-mana 2/5, the blue card, the Nyxborn Seaguard. Not a great card, but at least it does something. It gets me value. The stats work. playing Final Flare, that card is rarely good. I mean, unless you've got a super recursive black deck. My opponent's swinging there because I think they feel desperate. I mean, there's nothing they can do here. Yeah. So Wings of Hubris took us over top the opponent, and we win. All right, easy enough. I don't think I make any changes. I just removed a land. I'm thinking, so when I have 17 lands and a Traveler's Amulet, I think of the Traveler's Amulet like a land. So would I play 18 lands in this deck? Minor adjustments, I think I said no, and I put a card in instead. Because I'll do that, and I found a success doing that. It's hard to tell, right? But if you can play on the edge of the least amount of lands to still make everything playable, because then you have more playable. So then you're at the middle to end of the game, you're not just drawing lands when you don't need them anymore. So kind of minor adjustments. So I did take out an island, I believe. I took out a land for sure. I'm at 39 cards looking for that final card. I have an extra Wings of Hubris I could put in the deck. I don't think I'm going to do that at this point. You don't want 2 Wings of Hubris. It's not that good of a card. And most of the time you don't want 1. But I did that here. I'm thinking about if I need creatures or I can get away with like a Deny the Divine. What did I actually end up putting in? I'm so sorry that I want to check to see what I put in. Too busy talking. I think I put in a 2-drop. Oh yeah, Towering Wave Mystic. It's not a good card, but if I play something early, the fact that it has 2 power, you sometimes can put stuff early and get those quick wins if your opponent's land screwed or mulligan once or twice or something like that, or just has a really slow start. And I think it's what the deck needed. For my deck in particular, I have good top end, so just having something on the board would be good for me. I don't think the 2 mana 2/1 is a good card, but it's better than an extra land if I can afford it, as long as I don't get mana screwed. And I know there's going to be some players that watch this that disagree with that line of thinking, like, oh no, you should be playing 17 lands, or 17 lands plus a Traveler's Amulet. They might be right. I don't know. Like, in fact, comment and let me know if I'm thinking about it wrong. Like, my curve is designed for 17 lands, so can I cut to 16 lands and put a Traveler's Amulet in? Let me know. I want to play that way. So here, do I play the Nexus Wardens or the Loathsome Chimera? I know I want to kill the Nessian Hornbeetle eventually. And I was thinking the Warbar Blessing, I'd be able to kill, like, that's my removal in my hand. I felt like I had to get rid of the Loathsome Chimera, because then it shuts down the Nessian Hornbeetle from getting a +1/+1 counter each turn. I want to disrupt my opponent from their game plan. Yeah, I agree with this line of play. I don't think it would have been an advantage for me to keep on developing the board, like putting down Nylea's Huntmaster. Now my opponent's just got good follow-up. They have a 4-power creature into 3-drop into a 4-drop. So that's like a perfect curve. Turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. Playing my own Loathsome Chimera so I can fight if they swing. I think this game gets pretty grindy. was happy to see Uro. You're always happy to see it. That's like your first pick. If you can play it, you're happy to draw it. Yeah, I think I remember this game. So I got pretty lucky with finding the island off the top, because then I have Starlit Mantle that I feel safe from. My opponent has at least one black source, so they could play some sort of removal. And I can give one of my creatures hexproof. So I swung here. I probably do this. I probably play too risky or too aggressively, but I like that right there. That's what I want. That was a perfect thing. I got my opponent. They didn't want to give up the Nessian Hornbeetle, but they were willing to, try it out with the 4/4, and I had an answer for it. So I was very happy to kill off that. I wouldn't have swung if I hadn't found the island and been able to play the Starlit, obviously, because then you just would have blocked the 5/5. Here I'm thinking, do I just play down the Nylia's Huntmaster, or do I go fishing for cards with the Thassa's Intervention that would help me look at the top of the deck and draw 2 cards? I didn't mind swinging and losing either of my cards because I'm filling up the graveyard. And I want to see how my opponent... I like to put them on the back foot. I want to see what they're going to... I want to force them down a decision path that I'll be okay with. So that's why I like to swing a lot there. And I do think, looking at it now, that's an okay move. Yeah, I lost my Hornbeetle, but so did my opponent. And I think I'm okay with that. Now, they have 5 cards in hand. There's a lot more than my 1, that my 1 card will turn into 2 cards, but then it takes a turn to do that. And then my opponent also has 2 decent cards in the graveyard that can escape. I've got 1 bomb that can escape. We're kind of equal at this point. I have better board presence, but it's not much better. I wish I could have countered that. And my opponent keeps on playing stuff that gets them a lot of value. For example, filling up the graveyard, choosing a card, putting it back in their hand. We're fighting here. I mean, this is a good game. This is kind of Magic that I find fun, because we're both. My opponent doesn't have awful cards. I'm finding my good cards, and we're kind of playing to see who's gonna break. You know? Like, there's a lot of unknowns in these games. I felt it was important to kill off the Nyx Herald. The Acolytes, it doesn't matter. They don't do anything. Oh, if I stick that, I think it's a mistake. Yeah, it's a mistake. I should have killed off the Nyx Herald. And then here, I could just wait and do this at instant speed. Yeah, there's no reason to do it the way I did it. I think that's my best creature card that I chose, and then Relentless Pursuit. I thought about Wings of Hubris? Really? Okay. All right. I think so, because I think that is the right move. If I had put a 2/4 in my hand, the 2/4 playing it on this board doesn't do me any good. But the Wings of Hubris we could do something with that. And then choosing Relentless Pursuit, I'm not going to die anytime soon. I have 27 life, and my opponent's not super far ahead on board, so it's safe to choose the play that gets me the most value, which is Relentless Pursuit. I think overall I agree with the decisions made so far. Although here, playing Wings of Hubris versus... Yeah, the play here is to do exactly that. Relentless Pursuit, see what we find. We found a creature and a land. Happy with all that. And I filled the graveyard. So, overall, a strong play. Uro can become online. I think that's what I go with. No. Okay. Oh, yeah. So the reason I did this is because I saw that my opponent has 10 life. And if I could do 4 damage in the air for sure this turn and force them on the back foot. So my opponent could be thinking right now, I'm going to play some stuff to kill off the graveyard so they can't play Uro. Nope, not anymore. Now their top priority needs to be, I need to kill the Nylea's Huntmaster with flying. Or play my own flying creature to block it. So I forced my opponent down a line of play by putting aggression when I see that aggression is the right move. It's a very subtle concept, and I hope that makes sense to people saying. I mean, it makes sense in my head, but I hope I'm communicating it clearly to you. That's a strong play that my opponent laid down a 4/4 flyer, so they're not worried about putting a Wings of Hubris on one of my creatures on the field, and then was able to remove it. That's just really strong. But I had a good draw with this Nyxborn Colossus, as well as having the Uro. I went with the Uro. Here it doesn't matter. You just choose all the lands and the crap that... I don't think I have anything that brings stuff back from the graveyard in this deck. So... not a big deal. And here I've identified that the Wings of Hubris, put it on the Uro, and then sacrifice it is like a win. If I can... as long as my opponent doesn't have instant speed removal, it should be a win next turn. And that's why Wings of Hubris is not bad. It got me 4 damage in the air, and then it's going to get me the unblockable with the 6/6, and I swing and kill off my opponent. I'm not sure what's correct there, playing the Nyxborn versus the Loathsome Chimera. Just went with the Loathsome Chimera because the cards are still going to be in my hand, whereas the graveyard may or may not be there. I don't know if I'm right. You're sort of just making gut instinct choices at this point. Well, actually, can the Nightmare's Shepherd exile my stuff? Like, stuff from my graveyard? I don't know. I probably should know that. Okay. Opponent's got 3 mana up. And the board looks pretty good, but I have Wings of Hubris here. It's gonna... I just keep thinking in my head right now, like, I hope they don't have a way to kill off the 6/6. I'm just reading the card and make sure that it doesn't have any weird text in it. Here's my, like, YOLO play. Like, if he's got removal, he's got removal. Opponent doesn't, and we sneak in the win. Like, no business really winning that game. That was kind of a tight game. Like, we made kind of tight choices and identified areas where we can get just a little bit of damage in, and then just found it. Yeah, I think that was probably my favorite game of this run. We've got 40 minutes left. We're going to zoom through the last 2 games. Although maybe it's good to review our losses. I don't know. Like, there's definitely something to be said about that, right? Like, not just looking at your wins, look at your losses. But sometimes in Limited, the losses aren't helpful because opponent just had, you'll see in the last 2 games, just has crazy cards, and it's like, well, you get it. That's not much to be learned from this game. Let's see what happens on this one. I don't remember this game. Oh, maybe I do. We see Dimir colors. Black and blue. Now, do you play the Horn Beetle or do you just wait? Horn Beetle gets you an extra point of damage when I swing next turn. I don't know there. Probably the Singer could get me value later on, playing it onto a board and giving something minus X, minus 0. So opponents pretty much told me what they're going to play next turn, which doesn't seem to be that much of a downside for them. And so I'm thinking if my opponent's going to develop, well, then I'll develop. But my opponent outdeveloped me, especially with that card. It's kind of like a draw 2 card almost always. And you discard an enchantment that you don't really need. So right there, Omen. Opponent discarded the 3-mana Omen of the Sea, I think is what it's called. That card is just to help you ramp up anyway. So if you're discarding it to draw 2 other cards, it did its job. And draws 2 more cards because they play the Ichthyomorphosis. So opponent is very far ahead in terms of the amount of cards they have to mine. I also don't have that great of cards. I've got it okay if I can develop. Here I thought it would be cute, right, to do the Hydra's Growth on the Nessian Hornbeetle. Because even though they've spent a card to shut off my 2-mana creature, my 2/2, they could not shut it off if you put Hydra's Growth on it. So it's kind of like negating the Ichthyomorphosis. That was a consideration, but I thought putting the most amount of creatures on and force them to have further removal would be the better play. And I think it is here. Okay, opponent does have removal. And that's pretty good removal for that type of creature, because if they kill it, then I can recur it back later from the graveyard, escape it. Okay, here I think if I pass here, that's a mistake. You put the Hydra's the right choice here is to put the Hydra's Growth on the Nessian Hornbeetle, because I'm gonna do it anyway, right? Alternatively, I wanted to play the Hydra's Growth and deny the Divine, and if I wait 1 turn, I'd be able to do that. So that's what I was thinking, is I'll just deny whatever comes out. Okay, maybe I was incorrect. Maybe that this is the right line of play, because I can get what's it, Threnody Singer? That's a stupid name. Threnody Singer on the battlefield. I chose not to deny that. I think that's a correct choice, because my board can go over that. Okay, I'm drawing stuff, which is good. Here, the fact that they denied my creature indicates that I was safe to play the Hydra's Growth, but I elected not to because I could still do stuff this turn. I don't know if it's a mistake for my opponent. Maybe they want 2 cards in the graveyard. I'm not sure what they've got a game plan. They're looking for something. But I ended up not playing the Hydra's Growth because I don't need to. Turns out to be a correct choice here. That's why I held on to the Deny the Divine, because I got value from my opponent, and like they played a big creature, I played a small spell that was already in my hand. I still have board control, and I'm just getting further ahead. So until they play something that has to stop me, I'm going to keep on getting ahead. Maybe my opponent's just, drawing poorly, or maybe their deck design is not optimized because they need a little bit more creatures in here. I don't know. But I know if I stick to my game plan of draft a good deck and try to get through, that I tend to win in the long term. Like over a long period of time, I tend to win more games. It's consistency, right? Like it's playing 2 colors, get the right amount of lands, get the right curve, get to your top end, identify if you have to aggro your opponent down, or if you have to outvalue them in the mid-range, and play accordingly. Like play to your game plan. It's like the basic fundamentals, right? If you have fundamentals of drafting and limited, how to make a good deck that wins, you're going to win more games overall because most people don't practice the fundamentals. I try to always practice fundamentals, and you see when I screw them up, like trying to sneak in a third color, it didn't work out for me. And I got what I deserved, which is a loss on game 1. So that's pretty good that the Pharika spawned. I think that's what my opponent was looking for. But I got really lucky getting the Illyrios enraptured, because it lets me put stuff on the battlefield. So if my opponent spends the 1 or 2 turns it takes to get Pharika's spawn back, look, they're going to sack it, they're going to bring it back, they're going to force me to sacrifice one of my creatures. Well, I got these dinky creatures, these 2/3s, 3/2s that aren't doing anything against this 5/6 anyway, that it's fine. It's okay if I have to sack this one, then the Nexus Wardens. And all the while, my Nessian Hornbeetle just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I think at the point now where it's going to be getting a +1/+1 for... No, because it got shut down with the Ichthyomorphosis. So it's only getting double the counters each turn. Does that make sense? I know I'm talking through games fast and there's a lot going on the screen, but you guys can pause and go back and look up cards and encourage that. Like, I'm just happy the Hornbeetle keeps on growing, and it doesn't seem my opponent has removal for it, so I'm looking to see if it's safe to swing. I probably could have swung with the Hornbeetle. Decided against it. I'm happy about this because my opponent's going to run out of steam. I think exiling, they have to exile 3 cards from their graveyard. I'm counting up their graveyard as 6 cards in there. So they can only do it right now 2 more times, maximum, if they get a card, 1 more card in the graveyard. So they can only do it 1 time. And I've got enough creatures that we can play this game. So what do you sacrifice here? I elected for the 1/4. Maybe I'm thinking about the Wings of Hubris that I could put on the 3/2 and get bigger damage when I swing, but here I just feel good about my position. I should swing with the Singer. Yeah. Because I've got Mantle for backup in case they want to kill off the 16-17. Look, your opponent's telling you that they don't have a way to deal with your cards, right? If they just keep letting it go. So the Nessian Hornbeetle is now at 16-17. Doesn't have trample, but it doesn't need trample. It just needs to put the threat, and they have to block it each turn. they're getting value. You know, they're doing the best they can, but if they want to kill off my creature, I've got the Starlit Mantle, so I feel very good about this game at this moment. You know, it's like, do I need to block this? I don't know if that was... I don't think I needed to do what I'm doing here. I was thinking, oh good, I get to kill off his creature. You know, I have 11 life. I didn't want to lose to nonsense. And my opponent can block me with one of his creatures every turn, so I can't actually get through to kill off my opponent. And I didn't want to get down to some low life total and then lose to like bullshit. So that's why I made that block there. Yeah, sacrificed that creature. So here I don't feel as good here. I'm not sure what changed. I think the fact that I blocked the creature and they brought it back, they kind of 2-for-1 me, and they didn't lose a whole lot of value. But here you get lucky, right? If I had drawn Wings of Hubris, that would have won the game. If I had drawn Nylea's Forerunner, I get the trample. So, all right, next game. Oh yeah, watch this, guys. This, I have rarely seen as good of an opening as this. I was blown away by this. You just keep watching. I was like, damn, that's a good opening. 1-drop into 2-drop that makes his card bigger and draws him a card and gives +1/+1. And I don't have an early game play. Not that would have mattered. I can't do anything here. Unless I have removal, and I just didn't. So I was thinking in my head, okay, well, let's try to stop this engine from going off. My opponent counters my creature, gets in there for damage, is drawing cards, getting lifelink every turn. Here, I thought I was screwed. The 2/4 that I have, at least, allows me to ramp, first of all, but it also should block even if they put another one on there, but I didn't expect it to be that enchantment. I was thinking my opponent could play an enchantment, it'd give it +1/+1, I'd still be able to block. Nope. I have to let this through. And I'm hoping to find an out. But my opponent's, at this point, already drawn 3 cards off of their cards. And they keep getting bigger, and the lifelink is just insane. Here, this is a cute little trick, right? So, it looks like I have 3 forests up, but with Dryad of the Elysian Grove, the forest can tap for any mana. So, the auto tapper, I guess, can predict that, and my opponent's not going to think to play around Deny the Divine. Here I'm just trying to stop the flow. Trying to stop the engine and sort of figure out a way to get back into this game. Because I'm way, way, way behind. I didn't like that because that keeps the Pious Wayfinder getting bigger and bigger. Because with the Heliads, they can go into their deck and choose an enchantment. And so they'll find a Sentinel's Eye. The one that gives it +1/+1 in Vigilance. Because with this deck, my opponent for sure has drafted that. This is where, when you're on the back foot, having the Wings of Hubris does not feel that great. Yeah, my opponent had an insane opening that got them so far ahead. I felt like I had to do damage here, and that's why I swung. But, I mean, at this point, I'm so far behind. I have to draw a bunch of bombs, and I have to draw my removal. Here, I'm thinking if my opponent's got it, they got it. I know my opponent's getting lifelink each turn. But, like, what can I do? Okay. I kind of expected that. So one reason I blocked there, even though I was expecting my own creature to die, is because I can't let the Pious Wayfinder hit me to the face, because then my opponent would draw 2 cards, because the enchantment states that if you do combat damage to a player, draw a card. And so I have to slow them down, even at the cost of bad blocks on my part. This is a really cool deck for my opponent. I'm glad when people do crazy stuff like this. I think I did this on my turn. I did not need to do that. And also swinging there, I don't know if that's correct. It felt like staying back was incorrect. Now, looking at it now, I probably should have tried to double block and hope that my opponent doesn't have an enchantment, but they've got 4 cards in hand, 5 cards in hand, now 6. They have an enchantment. Like, it's almost for sure. They've designed this deck. My opponent they designed this deck to do exactly what we're seeing. And they're getting ahead on life total. Yeah, it's all bad. Yeah, of course. All right, I think we get it. See, I mean, I don't think there's anything I can learn or do better from this game, but, you know, shit like this happens. Well, I'm going to make a decision here to go to the next game. If that makes anyone upset, I'm sorry, but, I mean, the game is pretty much over. You don't see anything impactful here on out. There's no decisions being made. It's I draw cards, I play them, an opponent kills me. Here, we'll flip through it. So, yeah, I felt like I had to block. I did find my Uro later. I had the Forerunner. Look, I mean, I'm so far behind. Okay, next game. So we're at... we'll do a check. Oh, that's not the next game. Don't get confused. Saw the same game. 52 life to my 16. This is just a grind fest, and it does not go in my favor. So let's check to see. Okay, I lost that game. We're at, I think, 4 wins and 2 losses. So this last game is going to be a loss. Let's watch it and see what we can learn. I hope this content is entertaining. I'm getting views on the other videos. It's called Drafting to Win. I hope that it's, because that's my mindset behind all this, right? Like, when I draft, I try to draft to play to win. I don't try to draft what's fun necessarily, because I have fun finding the win. I guess, like, I go on Reddit Spikes. I like Spikes. I like the mentality. This is my competitive outlet. I played tennis competitively growing up. I played StarCraft, like kind of that one-on-one solo it's just fun. It's like a fun outlet to try to beat the game and play the game in such a way that you can get that win off of opponents. And I love limited. I really like Magic in general. I like constructed, but limited is more fun because it's my decisions, and I like the fact that I'm limited in my choices. There's some random element that you can get creative with it. Like how our opponent we saw last game, they had a 1-drop into 2-drop into 2-drop that just won them the game, and they had 52 life. Like, that's awesome. I love that. So here we're just developing. Okay. Opponent actually got good value off the Scavenging Harpy. You don't see that too often. That's not a super strong card, but I have another one that my opponent knows about, so I decided to play it. Well, yeah, I think I go with it. I'm just concerned about other things. Just generally good to play what your opponent knows about. And it's also not good to just pass this turn and hope that I can deny the divine, because if my opponent doesn't have a drop, then you've just passed the turn and done nothing. Where here, at least I know my board versus my opponent's board on the ground, I'm fine. And you can always wait to deny the divine and counter something big later on. Not always, sometimes it doesn't work out, but it's not a good strategy. Just hold on to your counter magic and let the turn pass. If you're going equal, like toe to toe with your opponent, play your good stuff, play their good. They will play their good stuff, and your good stuff should be designed that you have a winning outlet against your opponent. So board development is really important, and I don't see people value that as much as they should. That was a little bit of a test, swinging to see if my opponent would sacrifice their 4-3, and they elected yes. And when I saw the Ashiok being played, I was like, oh, another game just like it, like the last one, where I feel like my opponent just had better cards on curve, and nothing much I could do about it. So that's sort of what I wanted to showcase this game, or this draft series, is because this run, I should say, because I felt like I had a winning chance and it just didn't work out. 4-3, felt like the deck should have done better. And when you have a game like last game that we saw, and then this game with the Ashiok, and then maybe a mistake in game 1 where I kept in the red card that never actually did anything, I think that's what it comes down to. So you can have a really good deck and just it's rough out there. If you lose 3 times, you have to do way better than a 50% win rate to go infinite in limited, and it's really hard. You know, I think a lot of players put this weird, like, they want to be free to play. You're playing Magic the Gathering here. Like, my recommendation is work a job where you can make enough money to pay your bills and have a little bit of extra spending money and spend it where you want to, and do it where it doesn't break the bank. And so every couple weeks or months, really, it's probably been months, I'll just drop, for maximum value, I'll drop $100 and buy gems. I think I get 20,000 gems. And that keeps my hobby going. Like, I also buy cards and paper, but with this pandemic, with Corona, we're not going to be playing paper Magic for a couple months now. But, you know, I spend a little bit on paper Magic. I probably spend more there because it's more expensive. And I love playing with people. But, yeah, I mean, just put your money to where your hobby is. And if you like this game as much as I do, as much like you're watching a YouTube video on it, like, if you like it, put $100 in. And $100 is the most, you probably already know this, everybody watching or everybody that plays Magic Arena. If you put $100 in and get the $20,000 gems, that's the most efficient. You should always, if you're going to put any money at all into this game, put $100 in at a time. Save up for it. It's better. You know, I guess if you want to just put $20 in, buy packs or buy a draft here and there and just buy a few amount of gems, that's okay, but you're not getting the most bang for your buck. I'm just so happy that we have Arena to play like on here, and I get to talk about it, because I've been playing Hearthstone for years, and I always wish the Magic had some at exactly what we have, with the drafting, with, you know, as soon as bot drafting, I think that's always going to be a thing for Magic Arena, but as soon as they get human drafting in, the game's going to be awesome. It's going to be, and we're going to go in that direction. I foresee good things with Magic Arena. It's going to be better than Magic the Gathering Online, which I played for about a year, and the interface is really difficult, and I didn't like the way it works, but I like Arena a lot. It's very, very clear. I can make content like this, like doing Magic the Gathering online, Magic the Gathering Online, Moto, is the content. When I watch YouTube videos, like other YouTubers that draft on Moto, the interface is not conducive for it. Whereas here, I think it's very clear for you all to see what's going on. So I hope that, you know, you can always mute me. I hope that if you actually just care about the game, but I don't think there's a ton to talk about. I'm just trying to, it's kind of an uphill battle against the Ashiok that I can't get through. I can't get over top the 2/3s to kill off the Ashiok, and the Ashiok just keeps getting bigger and generating a 2/3 every turn, and eventually the Ashiok's gonna ult, and that's GG. I didn't feel like I was gonna win almost at any point during this game. All right, well, overall, I think the other episodes were a little bit more clear on lessons to be learned, whether it's mindset, how to play an aggressive mid-range deck, identifying your wins, reading your opponent. Other videos covered those topics. This was a little bit more loose and free form. I had fun. I just like talking on camera and sharing my thoughts, and we had a couple interesting games in there. Really just one interesting game that I can think of here. And I got to talk about Wings of Hubris, which has some nuance. There's always a card or two like that in every set that you're not sure if it looks bad on the face of it, and then it turns out that you can get some wins that way. But I do hope that you all enjoyed this episode nonetheless. And just while we're at the end of the video, I've sort of touched upon it, but it takes, I record a lot of runs. I mean, I do lots of runs, and I need to become a better, more consistent player, because I'm not bad, but I'll have like 3 runs in a row where I'm not sure if my choices were off, or, I mean, it's just, they aren't runs that are presentable to put up on YouTube. So what I'm showcasing is the interesting games that we can learn from. But yeah, concede. Sometimes if you're watching a video like this, I probably went through 2 or 3 other runs to get a run that was good enough to put on camera, to talk through, to put it out there and make good content around it. So that's just a little background. All right. I always like to show what we cracked open. If anyone's not interested, don't have to watch it. So, all right. I think that's everything. I think we stopped recording. All right. I'll see you guys next time for the next episode. Thank you for watching. Definitely leave a comment, interact. I have fun doing this, and I want to know the type of people that also watch this, and maybe we could collaborate or talk through some stuff. I'd love to have anyone, like, I don't stream live, but like a Google Hangout or whatever, and I'd be down for all that and just talk Magic. So, all right, thanks guys. See you around.